Hello, everybody. My name is Marcia Shigeo Hawley, and I'm with the Illinois Board of Higher Education. I'm the Associate Director, Consortium Student Supports, and I'm really pleased today to talk to you about increasing equity for the early childhood workforce. By the end of this training that I've been really thinking about, I want you to walk away with the ability to describe what the early childhood workforce is and how important they are to our community and how they contribute to our community. I also want you to be able to list some of the things about the improvement initiatives in Illinois. So it's really an informational session focused on the current early childhood workforce and how important this is for your community and for Illinois in general. I also want you to be able to think about what we're doing about potential solutions, what we can do to support high quality education and care for children and families. So I want you to be listening and seeing and thinking about this in mind, and to be able to use a framework or materials to support the knowledge and building this knowledge into other people. I hope that this was something that you can use and it can provide you with the ability to share this information with others. So, why is early childhood so important? The early childhood years are really the foundation for life. Brains are building, they begin to learn what relationships are, how important they are, and how to see the wonder and joy in learning. The workforce is critical in the early years to support our youngest children and their families. Since the world changes so rapidly and we need support during this time, we need the support of everyone in the community. There are many inequities that exist in communities in the early childhood education and care field, and including, and I'm going to show you about this, the funding, education, and employers to support their growth. Today is a time to think about that. So we're going to begin with the facts. There's a great racial diversity among teaching staff and licensed centers compared to public school. However, staff is predominantly, while in the lead teacher and the administrative roles, we have to look at what is happening there. The other thing is that there is a growing bilingual population within the early childhood workforce and in the workforce in general. Many early childhood, there is definitely a shift that we're seeing in the movement to shift the narrative that is important to think about community cultural wealth that has really had the amount of ability to really represent the communities they serve, making them the teachers for young children and families they can relate to and connect to. So we're really thinking about that workforce and how they can gain more knowledge, skills, and ability to increase their abilities. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm going to start with what we know about the database in childcare, Head Start, and preschool programs. You can find this in the registry, and the Gateways Registry is a database of information about childcare providers in the state of Illinois. It keeps track of providers' education and development in their professional development record and contains information about training and trainers. And we learn about this information from the registry. So I'm going to have you think about this. What do you think? How many early childhood people, early childhood profiles are currently in the Gateways Registry? Over 99,000, under 10,000, between 11,000 and 15,000, or over 20,000? The answer is number one. There are over 99,000 early childhood professionals in the Gateways Registry. This is an informational report from the Professional Development Advisories Council meeting in 2021. And just a note, Illinois holds the second largest workforce registry in the nation. So in non-school-based settings, what percentage of directors, leadership in early childhood programs are non-white? 10% of directors are non-white, 29% of directors are non-white, 39% of the directors are non-white, or over 60% of the directors are non-white. Think a moment. The answer is number 3. According to the 2020 Early Childhood Workforce Report, almost half of the workforce in non-school-based settings are non-white. 39% of the directors are non-white. More than half, 60%, are white. But keep in mind that 42% of the teachers are non-white, and more than half of the workforce of assistant teachers and family child care providers are non-white. So it's important to think about the racial diversity of teaching staff generally mirrors the diversity of the population of where they work. This is much higher than it is in the public schools. So I'm going to have you look for a moment at this chart. Are you confused? There are multiple options for affordable quality childcare and early education in Illinois. The funding of early education and care resources can be confusing, and the diversity of the workforce often does not match the children and families in programs. This chart illustrates the challenges that we face in early childhood programs with different funding requirements, different requirements for licensure, education, credentials, license, oversight of facilities based on funding, different levels of funding, and a lot of agencies working together to improve early childhood programs and services. In addition to this confusion of funding sources, the workforce, especially the leadership, does not mirror the populations of young children and families served. So if you really look at some of the reports from INCRA, 98% of the workforce are women. And we just talked about the numbers of people who are non-white in centers, and in the information that's important is that this is about early education and care in non-school congregate care settings, childcare, preschools, infant toddler care centers, and homes. And it doesn't capture the information that's in schools. So who are the members of the early childhood workforce? If you look at this list, it certainly is not comprehensive. We capture a lot of this information through the Gateways Registry, and it's interesting because it's not just teachers, lead teachers, assistant teachers, floater teachers, substitutes, early intervention, home visitors, infant early childhood mental health consultants, lead teachers, paraprofessionals, principals, program directors, site directors, education and coordinators. In addition to this, there are family support specialists, technical assistant specialists, coaches, mentors, consultants. There's a lot of people in the early childhood workforce. So who are the early childhood workforce in non-school-based settings? The challenge and reality is in compensation. So if you look here, it's a chart on what we know of compensation in this work. Staffing shortages and insufficient degrees are being confirmed. There's particularly staffing shortages for those with bachelor's and professional professional educator licenses, and the needs in Chicago with pre-K programs. And currently there's a waiver to use Gateways Level 5. And the truth is the demand for early childhood far exceeds the annual supply of the bachelor's degree holders in this field. So poor compensation and poor benefits is really challenging in this field. If you look at this chart, I want you to take a moment and think about what this tells you. In addition to the majority of the centers experiencing turnover, at least one staff, the actual turnover relates to the continual rise for teachers and assistant teachers, now the highest point that they've been, and the only decrease in turnover is with center directors, with just 10% leaving the programs they were employed at within the previous 2 years. Think about why there is so much turnover in the workforce that is most closely connected to children and families. What do you see when you look at the trends? This is playing out in the data from the Gateways Registry as well. This chart shows the highest level of education for licensed center teachers over the last fiscal years. You can see that the percentage of teachers with bachelor's degrees has been on the decline. Teachers with associate degrees and graduate degrees are remaining fairly consistent. So where we're seeing those bachelor's degreed teachers being replaced by teachers with less than an associate's degree. So what I want to do is move to a little bit more uplifting information from the challenges into improvement strategies that are happening in Illinois. So the next section of that I'm going to be talking about is focusing on what the state of Illinois is doing to improve the early childhood workforce. We'll briefly discuss these things, and so you can see what's happening currently right now, what we're learning about that, and what you have to look forward to in seeing the future data as we are. So I'm going to go over all of these in brevity, but I hope you keep your eye out to find out how these are. And so when things are moving into legislation or when things are changing, you can help inform the communities to think about and understand how important these vital improvements are to our communities and to our early childhood workforce. The first one I'm going to talk about is Great Start. And this was introduced in legislation in June 2000 and was permanently signed into law in 2004. The Great Start program is administered by the Illinois Network of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies and funded by the Illinois Department of Human Services Bureau of Child Care and Development. This bonus incentivizes and rewards workforce members who have completed college coursework and stay at their current place of employment. Great Start recipients are sent a monthly check. Actually, it's a check every 6 months based on their continued eligibility to supplement their income. This has been really, really important in terms of retention. The other thing that I want to make sure is that you look at the gateways to opportunity that has really created a career lattice, not necessarily a ladder, although you can tell that it goes up, but it shows the trajectory as well as the way of recognizing the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of early childhood staff and the pathways that we can recognize to achieve these different pathways into the field. The career lattice in Illinois is unique. It started with the development of the director credential with a symposium in 1997 that was convened by Paula Jordy Bloom. The Infant Toddler Credential Committee started in 2002, and the System for Professional Development Recognition for the Field of Early Childhood was funded through IDHS to create this statewide system. So it took a small group of small people that really rallied to make this possible in the state of Illinois. So Gateways to Opportunity does provide this way to recognize the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of early childhood staff and the pathways to achieve it. And it provides a shared set of competencies for early childhood education and care that really is now, amazingly, a part of colleges and universities in Illinois to support a common framework. The majority of this presentation has been on just some of the challenges facing the work ahead. The last years has been a time of great innovation with the early childhood space and early childhood higher education. And there are so many exciting initiatives underway that continue to take us into the right directions. So we're going to start on a positive note in a way that has been making the work that we've been doing make a difference. So first, if you look at what's been happening in terms of the Gateways credential, it's being able to see how much has increased in terms of the workforce in these credentials as we've been seeing this work continue. What do you see in this data? As you look at this, you'll be able to see that the red line shows the education level of the workforce, and the blue line shows the education level plus the Gateways credential. And what you see there is the reported increase of wages with the attainment of the Gateways ECE credentials. That's pretty encouraging. The next thing I want to talk about is that we've been able to show some of our funding structures that actually are important to drive some of the changes. So the Accelerate Child Care Center pilot is really helping to make recommendations that are really important in terms of tiered funding for the quality rating and improvement system, to establish a tiered funding ladder for Accelerate Illinois that reflects the cost of delivering services at each circle of quality. So for CCAP contracts, it expands the use of these contracts to ensure dedicated slots and adequate funding for high quality infant, toddler, and care. And the compensation was connected to that to increase salaries of all infant, toddler providers, applying the state's cost model for quality framework. So that's what's been going on. And what we're learning is that the goal was to incentivize quality and increase compensation by providing layered funding on top of reimbursement rates. And what has been happening is that they've really looked at how they can think about raising wages to the pilot scale and increasing staffing patterns to the new bronze level to get there and implement proposed Accelerate continuous quality improvement practices. So to continue to look at not just giving more money, but how you can use the money to continuously improve what it is that you're doing. So what has been done is the center earns payment rates based on staff credential and hours worked each month, not a reimbursement model. So the rates are earned only if staff members are paid at or above the pilot minimum. So it's really trying to incentivize quality and increase compensation by thinking about and providing layered funding on top of reimbursement rates. So the participants were pretty small. It was 35 centers in CCAP's Group 2 counties, which is in the bottom part of Illinois. And it was composed of 104 infant toddler classrooms, 63 preschool classrooms and 37 school-age rooms with 577 teachers and assistants. And please keep your eye on for what we've learned and what this pilot has shown us. The next one that I want to share with you is a significant piece of work currently happening in Illinois, being conducted by the Center for Early Childhood Learning Funding Equity. It's important to just look at what they've done to think about the purpose, to create a model salary scale that can be used for ensuring that funding is purposefully used to increase compensation for the early childhood workforce. The first part of this presentation showed us how important this is for quality, retention, and stability. And this part of the presentation is to really show you how things can be different with really looking at a purposeful salary scale improvement. So briefly, the decision for the recommendations are based on parity. The working group decided that teachers with a professional educator license should receive a comparable wage to K-12 teachers with the same degree attainment. Economic indicators that really tried to pin the scale because it maintained a healthy way of looking at the minimum wage, and years of experience that help to really think about the accounting for the years of experience for the people at each level in early childhood. Geographic boundaries, so looking at a compressed scale to think about Chicago Metro and the balance of the state when looking at wage differentials. Eligibility, to think about the scale starting to examine wages for teachers and teacher assistants, first in center-based only, and then the working group recognized that more work would need to be done to expand the scale for more positions and to increase this for family child-based providers. And then additional specializations as an add-on. So this is another thing to keep your eye on, to think about, and to consider as they learn about what they're doing. So keep your eye on this. The next thing I want to show is that there is a great deal of collaboration happening in the state. The Early Childhood Access Consortium for Equity, ECEC, was started with legislation to advance equity and support the needs of early childhood workforce to access higher education and for employers to support their staff. This provides increased access to credential and degrees. It's the program that I'm currently a part of and so excited about. This is the context for the workforce. So if you look at this and think, wow, this is pretty confusing, it's the context. It's really looking at the population, largely women, many who are women of color, who have not had equitable opportunities to access higher education, who cannot climb the social ladder and who are being kept from increasing their economic status and well-being. They generally earn low wages and are working full-time, and like many adult learners, need to upskill to better serve children and move into higher positions and higher paying jobs. In 2021, the Illinois Higher Education Strategic Plan included strategies to close equity gaps, support working adults, and advance the education and credentialing of the early childhood workforce. This focus is on the early childhood workforce, those working with young children. Why is it important? Equity, quality, outcomes in economy, workforce shortages and educator qualifications have been trending downward, as we saw before. And what we really want to do is to see the typical education pathway back into higher education, start working, and then really begin to think about how we can erase those barriers, because we can't do it alone. So how do we work through these challenges? We know that no one institution can do this by themselves, and together we can do it better. And so what we've really done is use the number one guiding principle, centering student success as the whole. The consortium, comprised of 62 institutions convened by the Illinois Community College Board and the Illinois Board of Higher Education, has membership that includes all public 4 years and community colleges and interested private university. There are other models for consortiums that are out there, but we've learned from those consortiums, and we haven't found that anybody else has found a way that includes all the state and includes all public institutions and community colleges. The goal of this consortium is to address the need of adult learners and represents a model that many potentially can be expanded to other educational disciplines. In addition, the legislation that created the consortium created an advisory to provide guidance and consortium operations. It's chaired by 5 different state agencies and have a vested interest and stake in early childhood systems and workforce. Through convening these, we ensure that we're looking at the challenges and solutions through multiple lenses. In addition to the consortium, this initiative also includes an immediate effect on behalf of all institutions to upscale with the provision of student supports, including scholarships and navigators. Students must complete the early childhood application, the ECEC application, and FAFSA, and for these scholarships. What's covered? Tuition and fees, funding up to the full cost of attendance, and their eligibility has to be that you work or have worked in an early childhood setting, childcare, preschool, in a position such as teacher, teacher assistant, director. Positions are all like recorded. It is focused on undergraduates seeking Gateway's credentials and or an associate's or bachelor's looking for a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. We have 32 navigators around the state located in our 16 service delivery areas. There are welcoming mentors at our participating higher education institutions that welcome new students into this world of higher education, and funding covers debt relief and funds to pay for barriers to enrollment. So it is about workforce and workforce supports. Our early success shows that the consortium unanimously approved 6 hours of college credit for a nationally recognized credential earning through assessment, training, and experience. A cross-sector working group of higher education, employers, and others intensely studied the CDA and recommended college credit for a credential that reflects the working adult's skills and experience prior to college. Another big win was students who earn an early childhood associate's AAS can fully transfer in their coursework to a 4-year institution and take no more credit hours than students who began at the 4-year institution as freshmen. They come in as juniors. So let's step back. What have we presented to you in the past few minutes here? We've looked at the workforce. We can see the challenges. So what? We've examined what the early childhood workforce might need in our own communities. We've heard about the state initiatives that are currently available, are in process, and are being studied. Now what? I want you to think about this. Think about whether or not can you describe the early childhood workforce and how they contribute to our communities. Will you be able to name or know when you recognize some improvement initiatives in Illinois that target and support Illinois early childhood workforce members and what the data tells us when it's released? Are you able to develop some potential solutions for your region to support high quality education and care for families and children? And can you use the framework or materials to support the building of others? I want to thank you so much for listening, watching, and glad that you have been able to be a part of this. Thank you very much.